Disney and Tezuka as being part of this Neo-Baroque genealogy in North America and Japan, adding a particular quality, particular sentimentality to each tradition. And so echoing these Disney antecedents, Holzmann shows off a pair of large cartoony white gloves, you can see there, in the attract sequence of the game, which is the top right-hand image, which portrays Sugimori's awareness of the tropes distilled in the tradition of the robot boy. And so while there is no explicit connection between such characters and their narrative universes, the intertextuality of form signals the concern for tradition and expressions of respect held between designers from 1960 to the present. Beginning with Cyborg 009, we can see how the lead character, Joe Shimamura, in the bottom there, has the trademark cow's-lick fringe, which often occludes one of his eyes. The motif of sleek black hair and a windswept fringe appears in the recurrent character of Rokuro Makube, which is on the right-hand side in the Osamu Tezuka comic. As a kind of shorthand developed over time through its repeated use, the fringe signifies a delinquent character of complex moral and ethical standing, kind of ambiguity. It makes the character Baroque in the sense that they're decadent and hysterical, and then but overly rule-orientated and stuff. A kind of robot out of control. And unlike the youthful Kenichi archetype used by Tezuka, who's the bright-faced young boy, kind of flesh and blood, whose face is always shown clearly with optimism and transparent emotion, the Rokuro Makube archetype that we see here across all these characters is a complex, shadowy character, perhaps Tezuka's most complex archetype. And in the film Metropolis, the Rintaro film, the animated feature film that was released recently, the rock character in that is the absolute kind of apotheosis of this Rokuro Makube archetype. Rokuro Makube is a Japanese term for the rock that, what it literally means is the rock you take out of the river that changes on your way home. It sounds kind of weird, but it's like the rock, you think it's beautiful and then it becomes ugly. Okay? Yeah. So Pulseman doesn't have hair, recalling the Super Sentai styling of warriors like Kamen Rider and the Power Rangers. His helmet covers the majority of his head and face. And yet, the brow of the helmet cuts down at a sharp angle between the eyes, creating a pointed nose, and then curves back up and behind to create an elegant shark fin, finally curving back round the head to a duck's tail flick at the back. This elaborate construction is doubly coded, first for its sci-fi excess, but second, when considered in silhouette, Ken Sugimori's design bears a strong similarity with that of Heroes Astro Boy and Cyborg 009. In shadowy repose, the difference between the successive generations of characters is minimized. And this is something that I think methodologically, when you look at Neo-Baroque imagery, you have to do intellectually. Sometimes what has been filled in the image, the content of the image, is not giving you the information that describes its genealogy of form, that there are other elements like the framing in the church or the silhouette and so on, where the continuity exists in the form. And so that what we think of in the first instance as a proliferation of heterogeneous form is simply a shift of focus to some other aspect of form. And so in shadowy repose, the difference between successive generations of characters is minimized. The recurring form of the silhouette, like a plot of land inherited by many individuals, is cultivated in texture and colour to create a sense of the contemporary, while staying the same in perimeter and shape. This is a metaphor of kind of cultivated land. It bears difference year after year, but in its form remains the same. And I think the Baroque, as it moves through different iterations through time, is kind of like that. That's a sort of Rousseauian sort of illusion there. So the shadowy form of the character is what I call the permanent trait. The silhouette is the permanent trait, whereas the impermanent trait is the variation within that form. So that the shadowy form of the character is the permanent trait, which the colour therein forms the impermanent changing aspect. In an interview with computer and video games writer Stuart Bishop, Sugimori writes of the development process that, quote, first we select an insect, And after that, we add some essential elements to those insects to make it more like Pokemon, such as adding some hard, consistent shape to it to be more like steel. So Sugimori, the designer of Pokemon, is actually talking about this. He's saying, like, when he's designing these things that we see as so radically different. Sorry, this is so laggy. There we go. What he's seeing first and foremost is the silhouette, and then the variation is put into silhouette, to flesh it out. Okay. So one of the important things about the Japanese Baroque is the emphasis on the shadow and the silhouette. And this is very distinct from conceptualizations of the Baroque as being about illumination and the aurora and of intensely different kind of bright colour that you see in a Western conceptualization of the Baroque. So shadows play an important part in the appreciation of Japanese character design and of the Japanese Rikyū. And reflection on their value recalls the well-known essay by Junichiro Tanizaki from 1933 in praise of shadows, Ine Rai-san. In that essay, he talks about the beauty of tarnished, worn objects which hold a special appeal to the Japanese. Quote, "Of course, this sheen of antiquity, of which we hear so much, is in fact the glow of grime. In both Chinese and Japanese, the words denoting this glow describe a polish that comes of being touched over and over again, a sheen produced by the oils that naturally permeate an object over long years of handling, which is to say grime. If indeed elegance is frigid, it can as well be described as filthy. We do love things that bear the mark of grime, soot and weather, and we love the colours and the sheen that call to mind the past that made them. Living in these old houses, in these shadowy old houses, is in some mysterious way a source of peace and repose." And a Japanese Baroque is not tipping into excess in the sense of overabundance. It's a slipping beyond that point into a shadowy complexity. And in that sense, the complexity of variation within form in a character is Baroque. You have a familiarity that you know instinctually. You see the silhouette and your mind immediately recognizes the 2 points of Astro Boy's hair. But then, in a second glance, you see that he's actually not Astro Boy. It's Cyborg 009 or it's Rokuru Makube or whatever. And there's a kind of variation within the series. So to see the texture of an object that has been handled signifies powerfully the relationship between object and its attendant owner.